This video tutorial is to give you an idea of where things are located in the Brookview Library. So first thing I wanted to go over was on the tables there are baskets. They're each labeled with a number 1 through 6. It is up to you whether you have assigned seats in the library, but it does make things more efficient if the students know where they're going as they're coming in. Also on the table, there are books inside of these baskets. These are called X-out books. They are not in the cataloging system called Destiny. And these are used twofold. Number one is if the students are, if they don't bring down their Chromebooks for Lexia or have work that they're working on, these books are a way to entertain the students as they are waiting for their tables to be called when they are ready to check out a book. The other thing they are used for is for if they forgot their books. We do not charge for overdues at all, but what we would want the students to do is not check out anything from the stacks anymore. So depending on your class, whether you check out 1 or 2 books, if the student only brings back 1 book, then they would be able to take one of the X-out books. So it's just a way to make sure that all students leave with something in their hands, something to read. So those X-out books have the students ask you if they can take one first, but they can be used in substitution to the books that are in the Destiny cataloging system on the stacks. Okay, moving on. As many of you know, the Brookview Library is currently unmanned, meaning there isn't anybody there to pick up after your class. And students have a tendency when they get all excited that things fall over, things fall on the floor, and then they don't pick them up. So it's very, very important that you as a class help maintain that library. That when you come in, if the previous class didn't keep it in order, that maybe your class helps to get it back into order. If there's things on the floor, pick them up. But most certainly, as your class is there, if some stacks fall over, which it's easy to happen because the shelves are slick, that if they do fall over, that person or helpers can get those books back on the shelves and back in their upright position. You may even want to assign 1 or 2 helpers that as you are lining up at the door, that they just quickly make a lap around and check the stacks to make sure nothing is on the floor. So if you can do that, that would just be very helpful. We have to work as a team to be able to make this work this year. And one of those things is just trying to keep everything in order, at least up off the floor and on the shelves. And just like you do in your classroom, make sure all the chairs are pushed in, and those X-out books, make sure that they're back in the baskets, because that'll keep things neat and clean and have things ready for the next class coming in. Okay, let's move on. So the first 2 stacks over by the windows, the 2 tall stacks, are the fiction section. So this is the stories that are a little bit higher level. They run the gamut, though. There's some lower levels and there's some really higher levels too. So there's a lot of variety in this section. It is by author's last name. So both these are the fiction sections. So the A's start over here at the end and then weave up and down, and then they end over here with the letter Z. And also, if it was a set, like here is Bad Kitty, I tried to label that on each of the shelves so that the kids could see those more easily if they had a particular grouping that they like to check out. Also down on this side at the end is something we have called the early chapter books. The early chapter books are in between the picture books and the fiction books. So they're that transition period of kids going from picture books to full fiction books, the harder level reading. The early chapter books were not being checked out at all over by the picture books, and I thought maybe it was because the kids really wanted to get over to the fiction section, so I moved them over to the fiction section. They're at the end of the stacks. I have a stuffed animal at the top to show you where they are, but there are these 2 rows right here, and they are just the beginning chapter books. So your Junie B and your Magic Tree House and some other ones too. And luckily, it is working. It's very exciting to see the kids are starting to check these out quite frequently. So that is good. But that's where the early chapter books are. Next, okay, so the last 2 stacks, so there's the 2 on the left stacks, which are the fiction, the 2 on the right are the nonfiction section. In this one stack down the left, it has the globe on the top of it. They are all the United States, the different countries, and also sections on the American Indian. So if you do research projects on this particular area, they are all right here. In addition to biographies, there is a lot of biographies. It was wonderful to see. Brookview has a lot of biographies, and they are at the end of this stack and on the other side at the end also. So that's where the biographies are located. And as you can see, here we go. These are also the nonfiction. We just went over where the states, countries, and Native American Indians are. And so the rest of these two stacks are the nonfiction. They go by the Dewey system. So you do have stories like folk tales and fairy tales here, but the fiction is more reserved for just the regular stories. The Dewey system starts at the 000s, so they're right here, and that's like the Guinness Book of World Records and strange things, weird things like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, etc. Going into the 300s with the fairy tales, folk tales, into space, dinosaurs, animals are on the other side with both wild and domestic animals and drawing books and etc. down the way. So that's where the nonfiction is. Okay. Next, over on the other side of the library, I pulled out there are two very, very popular sections. One is the graphic novel section, and one is the sports section. I put them in this very front area, so it is visually there. So because huge groups of kids usually congregate around the sports section and the graphic novel section. So I put them where the teacher can see them. The graphic novels are what you would call a comic book. And then the sports section, these are all the sports, anywhere from dance, volleyball, soccer, and of course, baseball and football, basketball, and even the Olympics. So I am going to grow this section. That's a goal of mine this year, but that's where all the sport books are right now. And then finally, the last section I wanted to go over is our E section, the E elementary or early readers. And they are the A's start over here. It's by author's last name also. The A's start over here and go up and down, and they do take up a half of this section over here. And even with the picture books, even though they are picture books, there are some very high-level reading books over here because that's where most of the holiday books are also. And then finally, the last thing is, this is the end of this training session. The next training session, we'll get into actually how to check out. So that's where things are located. This class list book is located up by the Circulation Center. We'll go over that in the next training, what you use this for. It's where the barcodes are to find the kids in the system to be able to check out books. And then also the shelf markers are another way. These are the shelf markers that are on the table. This website right here is a awesome video tutorial done by a public library on how to use these shelf markers. That is another way for kids to keep things organized so that they don't fall off the shelf as easily, and they make sure they keep things in the right area. Would love if you had a minute to show this to your kids. If not, we do go over it on your first training session to the library, but just wanted to point that out. So that's that shelf book, and then the class lists here. And I think that's it for this training session. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully you know where things are. And if you have any questions, just email me at tmartin. Thank you.